Hello, and welcome to Namio's Corner, where we explore the best, the worst, and the incredibly mediocre in religious art and culture. If there's one constant in the world, it's this.
The most important time of a Mormon kid's life is his mission.
While it's not technically a requirement for every male Mormon who comes of age to go on a 2-year mission, social pressure within the LDS Church ensures that a vast majority of them do. It's considered a rite of passage, and returned missionaries gain a higher social status than those who elect not to go on a mission. But missions aren't just a big deal socially and spiritually, they're also a big deal financially. Missionaries are expected to either save or raise enough money to cover all of their expenses before they even know where they'll be going. Back in the day, missionaries were expected to foot the actual cost of their service, meaning that someone who was placed in a country where the cost of living was high, such as Japan, had to raise a lot more money than someone who was placed in, say, Oklahoma. But those rules were eventually changed to a more socialized system where the cost for everyone, regardless of placement, is $400 a month. This works out to just under $10,000 for a 2-year mission, which is still a lot of money and can be difficult to raise, especially for children from very large families whose parents might not be able to afford to kick in much of anything. And that's where today's film comes in. Sort of. Money or Mission is a short film based on an article that director John Lyde read in an LDS magazine. That article was a short testimonial by Patrick Gill, played in this movie by Nick Whitaker. Gill's article is a very brief and to the point account of how, when he was on the verge of turning 19, the temptations of money and independence came close to preventing him from going on a mission. In the opening scenes of this adaptation, we're introduced to Patrick and his skater friends, including Clay, an older and much cooler skater who Patrick has idolized from afar since he was a preteen. Patrick gets a call from his boss, the owner of a local skate shop, and is offered a promotion to manager. Patrick is thrilled, especially considering it's his dream job, but there's a complication. In 3 months, he's planning on going on his mission. Patrick has several conversations with his parents, with his best friend Michael, who is going to be leaving on his mission within a few weeks, and with Michael's sister Carrie. Carrie is the girl the real Patrick ended up marrying, but this movie can never quite decide if they're a couple, so it goes back and forth between them acting like their couplehood is implied, and her denying that she has any feelings for him at all. In each conversation, the other characters respond to the prospect of Patrick taking the job as if it's something sinister and dangerous.
What would you think if I took the job?
You know what I think. You're just hoping I'll change my mind.
Patrick's old enough to make his own decisions, even if we don't agree with him.
Isn't there something we can say?
Well, I thought about it, but I think it would just push him away.
I don't want to do that. It's just that his choices lately just haven't been the best.
No, Diane, I don't agree with his choices either, but we can't make his decisions for him.
Okay, let's recap what they're all so upset about. Patrick, at the ripe old age of almost 19, has so impressed his boss at the shop where he works that he's been offered a management position that comes with a huge raise and a lot more responsibility. On top of that, this is Patrick's dream job. Even if they don't think that he should take it, would it kill these people to at least acknowledge Patrick's accomplishment, or, dare I say it, be happy because he's happy?
That's just stupid.
Everyone's attitude becomes even less comprehensible when Patrick lays out his thought process as far as taking the job versus not taking it.
Look, if I take the job, KC will want me to work for at least 6 months. That means I'll only have to wait 3 extra months before I go. I can make a load of money, too. Maybe enough to cover my whole mission. On the other hand, if I don't take it, my mom will still have to keep working part-time to help pay for my mission. Right now, I've got a little over $2,000.
Money or mission, huh?
Money or mission.
It's not often that I see a movie where the title drop is a lie. It's like neither of the characters are even listening to their own conversation. Patrick just explained that he's still planning on going on a mission. He's just delaying the start of that mission so that he'll be making the money for it instead of his mother. That's not money or mission. That's money, then mission. Not only is Patrick's plan not selfish and not greedy, it's incredibly practical, and he wants to do it for all the right reasons, which makes his family and friends' reactions all the more baffling. But soon enough, we're introduced to some conflict that does make sense in the form of Clay, who has taken an interest in Patrick and begins inviting him to hang out with his band of bad boy skaters. And you know they're bad boys because they do things like skate where they're not supposed to, drink alcohol, talk Patrick into staying out late even though he has church in the morning, and that same night get chased away by the cops. All in all, they're your average bad apples. Up until this point, Patrick's primary goal in taking this higher-paying job has been to set aside money for his mission. Clay begins to point out that now with his higher salary, Patrick can do things like buy that really nice skateboard he's been eyeing, get a better car, and move out of his parents' house. Throughout this process, as Patrick moves further and further away from the path he originally planned on, his family and friends continue to blame his job for the change in his priorities, even though it's glaringly obvious that the problem is Clay. Over time, Patrick begins to work on Sundays and avoid his family and friends, except for Carrie. He has several conversations with her, including this one where they talk about him pulling away from Mike.
Why are you avoiding him?
I don't know. I guess I'm embarrassed to be around him.
Why?
Because he's all spiritual and stuff and going on a mission.
I thought you were going too.
I'm not sure. I believe that the church is true, but it's easier to believe than to actually do.
And so we have the beginning of Patrick's downfall. The truth is that Patrick doesn't want to be around Mike because watching his best friend follow the path that everybody expects him to makes Patrick feel guilty. And that guilt begins to eat away at him to the point where even hanging out with Clay and the others doesn't make him happy. Also, Clay kind of acts like a cult leader.
Heath, you're up. Patrick, you're up next.
Yeah, right.
Don't be such a wuss.
Okay.
Models don't think for themselves. They do as they're told.
That is not true.
Yes, it is, Derek.
Okay.
This is Patrick's problem. Not a lack of faith, not his job, and not the money. His problem is that he can't say no to Clay, even when he wants to. And despite how much this movie wants us to look down on Patrick for avoiding Mike and being unsure whether he wants to go on a mission, it also makes it clear that Patrick is not doubting his faith. In fact, the only time thus far in the movie that Patrick has said no to Clay was when Clay offered him a beer, meaning that even if he isn't going to church, he's still following Mormon dietary rules. In another conversation with Carrie, Patrick reveals his unhappiness.
A few years ago, I idolized Clay. He was everything I wanted to become. And now I find that he's just like everyone else.
You mean he's actually a human being? You're kidding!
Don't get me wrong, he's awesome on a board, but that's all he cares about.
What do you care about?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I hear girls really like returned missionaries.
Really? What girls?
Guess you'd have to go on a mission first to find out. Seriously though, Patrick, I don't know where you're headed. And I don't know if I'm going to be interested in that guy you become.
So, like, here's the thing. I am the center of, like, my universe. And, like, even though this movie can't really decide, like, whether we're dating or not, like, I just wanted to let you know that unless you take the life path that I want you to take and become the person that I want you to be, you do not have a prayer of hitting this. What? Did you think I might actually care about your struggles? Like, or that if I actually cared about you, I would want you to be happy more than I would want you to conform to my expectations? As if! On the day he's leaving for missionary training, Mike finally comes to Patrick and offers this advice.
About 6 months ago, I realized I'd stop kneeling when I prayed at night. I would either just lay in bed while I say them, or sometimes I would just fall asleep. I noticed a difference. I wasn't as happy.
And?
And I made a promise myself that I would kneel every time I prayed. It made all the difference. It was then that I got the desire to serve a mission, and everything important would be waiting for me when I got back. Pat, you should try it.
My knees, huh?
Hardwood floor.
Have you got that, everyone? If you pray in any other position than on your knees on a hardwood floor, then according to Mike, you're doing it wrong. Patrick goes home and has a talk with his dad.
Do you realize how much Max looks up to you?
Saying that because you're afraid that if I don't go on a mission, Max might not either?
No, I'm not worried about Max. Although that is something to think about.
Dad, I like skateboarding, my music, and my friends. Seems like a lot to give up.
Are you happy, Patrick?
I don't know.
You're gonna have to find out for yourself what makes you happy.
And apparently the movie just got bored with that scene. This bugged me because I really would have liked to see the scene go on a little longer, and not just because Patrick's dad is the only somewhat sensible character in the entire film. Patrick's dad just put his finger on Patrick's real issue. Patrick's idolization of Clay made him believe that if he could only be like Clay, he would be happy. So when he had the opportunity to be taken under Clay's wing, he jumped at it. Now, having discovered that he and Clay are very different people, and that what makes Clay happy won't necessarily make him happy, Patrick is feeling lost and unsure of what to do. This is the perfect opportunity for his father to actually offer him some gentle guidance and understanding. Instead, the movie just wanders away from the scene as if it were meaningless filler, which it isn't, or at least it shouldn't be. On the other hand, it's possible the director was just in a hurry to get to the climax, which has no context whatsoever. We cut directly from Patrick's conversation with his dad to the tennis court at night. Clay and the others are in a shouting match with some random, probably drunk guys, while Patrick tries to convince them to leave. Things escalate, and one of the random guys pulls out a knife, prompting Patrick to hit him in the head with his skateboard. In retaliation, they surround Patrick and start beating him up, but are interrupted by the arrival of a cop. Everyone runs away, including Patrick's friends, who abandon him with only a single backwards glance. This is what it takes for Patrick to finally, I guess, learn his lesson, as he walks home from the police station, goes back to his old bedroom, and kneels on the hardwood floor to pray. As he kneels, he gets a vision of himself as a missionary, but I only know that's what's going on because I've watched the special features. In the movie, the vision is presented as a cutaway, and on first viewing, I thought he was just daydreaming. The vision prompts him to move back home and start preparing for a mission, including selling his truck, quitting his job, and praying on his knees regularly. This culminates in a final speech to the congregation, which for some reason requires Patrick to grease his hair like Danny Zuko.
I later learned that my whole family and my close friends had been fasting for me 2 weeks earlier. I can't thank them enough for the love that they shared.
Wait, are you trying to say that you getting beaten up and committing assault was God answering their prayers? Or are you just attributing your change of heart after getting beaten up and committing assault to their prayers? Because that distinction is kind of important.
The time that I wasted trying to figure out what made me happy. Turns out it was right in front of me the whole time.
And if you hadn't taken the time to make a few mistakes, you would never have figured that out, now would you? And shame on you for trying to figure out if going on a mission was something you actually wanted to do. I mean, it's not like being an unwilling missionary would undermine the success of a mission or anything.
I'd like to say to you young men who are preparing to serve a mission that you should get on your knees.
That's what she said. Or he said.
Initially, I found this movie really confusing because on the surface, it's a morality tale that draws the wrong moral from its story. This movie thinks it's a story about how following his own selfish desires for money and independence led to Patrick's downfall, and how the intercession of his family and friends brought him back. But it isn't. It's actually a story about a devout, well-intentioned guy whose desire to be seen as cool causes him to make a series of decisions he didn't actually want to make, culminating in him getting a harsh wake-up call, realizing that his idol is actually a self-centered, unimpressive jerk, and deciding to get back on the path that he knew he wanted to follow all along. Patrick didn't want to move out, start frittering his money away, or alienate his family and friends. All of that happened because he was listening to Clay. And if the movie was aware of that, rather than constantly trying to cast the blame on Patrick's job, this could have been an interesting and potentially powerful story. In addition, this film's biggest writing issue is that the characters in the first half of the movie act like they've already seen the second half. Given the information they actually have, there is no reason for everyone around Patrick to act so hesitant and disapproving about his decision to delay the start of his mission for a few months while he makes some extra money. Because of this, it feels like they're not upset because their worries are in any way justified. It feels like they're upset because Patrick isn't following the exact path they want him to, or at the very least, he's not following the steps they expect him to take in the exact order they expect him to take them in. Throughout the movie, but especially in the first half, all of them come off as petty, controlling, and unreasonable. Here's the problem. The real Patrick Gill's story isn't that interesting. It's certainly not cinematic, and it would have made for an intensely boring movie had they told it the way it actually happened. Other than the fight, most of the real Patrick story takes place in his own mind, which is generally impossible to effectively convey through film. I think this is why the writer added the Clay character as a kind of avatar for Patrick's inner rebellious streak. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, this strategy was too successful. Clay is too convincing as the corrupting influence that Patrick looks up to for the audience to recognize him as an avatar for part of Patrick's own personality. Meaning that when Patrick is led astray and begins to feel lost, it's not something that the audience will attribute to Patrick's own failings, and certainly not something they'll attribute to Patrick's barely seen job. It's really a shame that the movie ends up missing the mark so badly in this respect, because both the moral they thought they were telling and the one they actually ended up telling are ones worth hearing. Unfortunately, they couldn't tell either of them right. I'm Namio, and the deepest sincerity cannot excuse a poor adaptation.
Hoo-wah, hey-ya, shoo-wah, zada, wow! 2 by 2, we're marching door to door, 'cause God loves Mormons and He wants some more. A 2-year mission is our sacrifice. We are the army of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 2 by 2, and today we'll know who will make the journey with and where we'll go. We're fighting for a cause, but we're really, really nice. We are the army of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.